Now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
Kind of caught me off guard there. What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to episode 211 of Flipping the Birds. I'm Bryan Cameron alongside Morgan Burkett, and we're live. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good, man. I don't know. Something about the schedule releases. They're upping it every year, man. All the social media teams and all that stuff. It's kind of fun. So I've been enjoying that. And, I mean, compared to last year, Eagles got a pretty nice schedule. So, yeah, it's a good one. And I don't know. Like, it's still a long way off. But stuff like this kind of reminds you that there is football on the horizon, which is good, man. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Well, we have, 100 and something days left until football. I feel like the schedule really should have been something grander. Like my issue with it is that they wait till about 8:00 at night on a Wednesday after everybody's leaked the schedule already for them to release it. And I feel like that's a little aggravating at times. Like, just drop it first thing in the morning, make a big spectacle of it, and then let us enjoy it for the rest of the day.
Yeah. I almost feel like, too, they could go like week by week and be like, oh, this is the primetime game for this week. And be like, all right, now we know week one. Now we know week two. But it kind of gets like dropped sporadically. It's like, all right, we know what the week 17 game is for Kansas City all of a sudden. And we know like what the week 4 game for the Buffalo Bills is. And it's like, you know, I just wait till the end. What'd you feel about the video? What do you think about the Eagles drop?
It was entertaining, but like I feel like it could have been better. Like, I feel like they could have had better members of the fans there. Like, you know, I would say, like, you know, a guy like E-Rock should have been included in there somehow, some way, because he's been the forefront of the face of the fans for a long time. I don't know, like, compared to everybody else was pretty creative, like, except for the Raiders. The Raiders just like, when?
Yeah, there's a few of them that were like, yeah. But I feel like the Eagles one was very Philly. It was like, man, like, there's definitely some quotable moments. Me and my brother were watching yesterday, and there's like, there's some like the girl being like, oh, like, do you feel any type of way about this? No. And stuff like that. And then, like, you know, like, Dallas sucks. Cowboys ass.
The Cowboys one was creative though, with the whole FaceTime, and that was kind of funny.
It was creative, but they mostly got roasted. Like, you know, like, that's why I liked it so much. Like, I don't know how your social media team does that to your own team, bro. Like, that part was crazy to me. But, yeah. I mean, and then there's, like, you know, teams like the Bills that, like, their social media team's been wild the whole time. Like, the whole I don't know if you like the Parks and Recs thing where, like, Josh Allen's living in the construction site outside the stadium. I didn't peep the Bills one. Oh, it is hilarious. But they, like, again, Bills have been hilarious. So, like, from what we've been getting from the Eagles social media team, I feel like this year is pretty good. Because in the past, it's just been like,
it's been kind of
feels like, yeah, it feels like the social media team for the Eagles, for how much the city like lives and breathes sports, it's just been okay, you know. So I like to see them amping it up. Like, they got actual production value. That, you know, they brought some, that was cool to see at least. I can't remember what it was last year, but
yeah, I forgot what last year's was, but it was cool to see the guys, like, you know, you had the Philly sports guy in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that resembles Gardner Minshew for that time period, right? It was pretty dope.
Santa
I mean,
Claus.
seeing that, the Santa Claus thing was kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie.
I think one of my favorite lines from it was when he calls his mom and he's like, "Hey, mom, you ever been in Jacksonville?" And there's just like a pause. Jacksonville, where? Just like, I think that's all I need to know. Click. There's some quotable lines in there, man.
No, it was definitely a step up from how they've been in the past.
Yeah.
But it was a welcoming moment for what seems to be a promising season going forward. We, you know, obviously we've kind of alluded to how great of an off season that they had.
For sure.
From a, you know, front office standpoint, with the things that they pulled off, the extensions, the signings, the selections in the draft. And now it's time to kind of get to the nitty and gritty of it and just kind of view how this team can actually fare come this season.
Yeah, man. There's like I think for me, like the biggest one. Obviously we're gonna get into it, but the biggest one for me is like starting off taking away a home game from one of the most passionate fan bases, and that got announced a long time ago. But I'm still kind of hung up on that because, like, they sent Jacksonville to London for a long time, and the reason for that was that no one in Jacksonville was buying tickets. Like they weren't selling out every game. Like you're taking away a game from one of the most passionate fan bases in sports, let alone football, and you're sending it to Brazil, who like, I don't know if you heard that news article about like their rival wears the Eagles colors, so it's banned in the stadium and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know. It's not favorable for anyone, in my opinion. But I mean, week one, at least you get it over with early. But
it's a risky move from the NFL, like you mentioned, because you're taking it away from one of the most passionate fan bases. And this isn't like a regular team as well. Like even the Packers standpoint as well. Like these are not regular teams that should be so included in this kind of, like, so loosely included in this kind of formula for international games. When you come playoff time, these two teams will be in the playoffs going at it, and you kind of want to reserve a little bit. You want to give more back to the fans per se.
Send the Giants and the Vikings to Brazil.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It should. That's how it was previously. It was bad teams like Jacksonville, New York Jets, or something like that.
Man.
Going
Make
to
Brazil earn it,
London.
man. As a Canadian who doesn't get any games, make Brazil earn it, man. We should be at least give us a game. Like we love football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know we're not as big of a country, but like we have the second most amount of players in the league. I think maybe outside like Samoa and stuff like that. I don't know, but
the Samoans start taking over wrestling still, so that's their thing.
Yeah, man.
But let's dive right into it, man. I mean, the 2024 schedule was released yesterday. From week 1 to week 18. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to jump to the end right away, right? But this is like, it's a lot better of a schedule than it was last season. When it comes to a competitive balance, I feel like everybody just spread out. Like you have them facing, multiple bad teams in a row, then facing a good team. It's such a great balance in this schedule compared to last season.
Mm-hmm. And that is correct. Toronto used to get a Bills game once in a while, but it's been a while. I don't think that was since like the early 2000s. But I mean, the nice thing is it's close by. We can just drive down. But yeah, man, I think like overall, the biggest thing that sticks out for me is the week 5 bye. Like I think that kind of sucks. It's early, but like I think the biggest thing and the biggest change from last season is there's not really a gauntlet. There's not really 3-4 games in a row where you're playing playoff teams and perennial playoff teams at that. You kind of, there's tough games along the way, and you're not going to win 17 games. Like it just, it's not likely. So there's going to be some bumps along the road, but a lot of games in here to like, okay, you run into a tough matchup and then you have a game the week after where you kind of have the ability to stabilize. You're playing again, we don't know how all these teams are gonna shape out, but on paper,
there's a lot of bounce back options.
Exactly. Yeah. So a favorable schedule all around, but the week 5 bye, that's just tough. You don't really get a chance to recover after injuries, and at least we don't have the same case as last year where you're also playing like a Thursday night game and then Sundays and then a Monday and then all over the place. Like we got a lot more 1:00 games, which is good too, but. Yeah,
I mean, in reference to the week 5 bye, I mean, they get kind of a mini bye week 11 to week 12, where they have a Thursday night game against the Commanders, and then they have a Sunday night game against the Rams as they travel to LA. I don't know, like to me, like that's
where you want it.
Yeah, exactly. That's that's you're technically getting the mini bye at the right time, where it's like you're going into this slate where you're gonna be facing Lamar Jackson, you're gonna be facing. Actually, that's really it. I mean, Matt Stafford, yeah, but like you're really like the one main QB you're facing is Lamar Jackson, Bryce Young, who we don't know who he's gonna be, and so on and so forth. But let's start from the top. I mean, week 1, you mentioned Brazil. You mentioned that it's it sucks that they're taking away the home game away from the actual Philadelphia fans.
Yeah.
to put it internationally. But Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, it's a spectacle. It's gonna be something I feel like it's great. It's gonna be a great matchup, a great QB duel. I feel like this season you have a lot of good QB duels.
Yeah.
But what are you expecting? Week one, it feels like two similar teams, except for Eagles have that surplus of talent on the offensive side.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference. Obviously, a younger, more developing receiving core for the Packers, but an opportunity for both quarterbacks to kind of make their mark on what should be kind of a battle for the NFC for the next couple of years, right? Like, you hear a lot of people, people that like to slight Jalen Hurts, comparing him to Jordan Love. That's a pretty common comparison, and so it's going to be a great matchup. I think. Again, like we talked about going in Brazil, like there's so many factors that play into that as well. Like one team might get their flight delayed, and then all of a sudden, like they're not set up as well to compete, right? And so there's so many factors that play into this. It's a really tough game to call for me. But I think the X factor is really going to be the Eagles' defense. The Vic Fangio scheme is not an easy one to learn. How well can they get it down before week one and face not just a very talented quarterback, but by all accounts, a very intelligent one as well. So I think that's going to really be the X factor, but I wouldn't be surprised if this game goes either way. I don't think starting off the season with a loss would be the worst thing. Like, I think that there's some schedules they've had in years in the past where like you start slow, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's the case for this year.
I don't know. I mean, there's a competitive balance, in week one where you have Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, right? Then you have Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. But it kind of falls off after that offensively. Like you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. The Packers, I feel like they don't have that kind of elite talent at their disposal at the moment. There's no Devontae Adams no more. You get me? Like there's just not that guy that scares the Eagles secondary enough. So I feel like where the Packers pull off and win. But like you mentioned, it's on the defense. I mean, I feel like that's why they had the mandatory minicamp as well to kind of get ahead of the curve with the Vic Fangio system. But like you're bred to take big steps forward in this defense this season. Like you have Quinyon Mitchell, you have Cooper DeJean, you still have Darius Slay. You brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Devin White, Nakobe Dean's gonna be healthy. Zach Bond apparently is a secret weapon of all secret weapons that everybody, including Vic Fangio, is alluding to. And then I'm still wary of the defensive line a bit, just because there's nobody I trust on the defensive line to the extreme. Like we know the talent that is there, but we have yet to really see it to fruition. But yeah, I agree with you 110%. Like a loss here isn't bad. I just don't think they leave Brazil with their heads down, just because I feel like this is going to be the revenge tour for the Eagles.
Yeah,
and I think week one is it's going to solidify and start it up.
Yeah. For me, I either see like a very close game in which in close games I almost lean towards the Packers. They've just had that kind of grittiness and the ability. And I just think that like throwing the ball up and hoping for the best is more their MO than the Eagles, and like it can work for the Eagles. But the Eagles have been front runners for a long time, and they like to play that way. So it'll be an interesting game for sure. But again, now we're talking going into week two. You get a team where sure they made some changes, but the Eagles have always kind of had the Falcons' number. So I feel like it's a good bounce back game.
They've also had Kirk Cousins' number, and I was going to mention that I feel like I don't remember when the last time was that the Eagles actually lost a week one game. Over the last several years, it's been some time.
There've been some close ones, but it's been a while.
That Detroit Lions one was kind of a bit much.
Falcons a couple of years ago too.
Yeah. And then going into they're going from one primetime game on a Friday night, which is different, right? And then going from Friday night to a Monday night game against the Falcons, where the Falcons actually come to Lincoln Financial. They get primetime Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has not had best of luck when he faces the Eagles in primetime, but this is a different roster per se. But again, like Drake London isn't the second coming of Justin Jefferson.
No.
Bijan Robinson is a hell of a weapon, but it's the first year under their head coach. Big expectations for the Falcons. I get that, but at the same time, it's kind of like like you mentioned, the Eagles have had their number for quite some time.
Yeah, I like what they're building, to be honest. Like, I really don't hate the approach that Atlanta's taken. Let the young team grow with a veteran. But I think what Atlanta's really hoping for is, to sneak into the playoffs in a weak division. Maybe steal a couple. Hope that some weaker opponents they can kind of eke out some wins. And I still think it's the Bucs division to lose, but you never know, right? And so I think that the Falcons are doing what they can to compete. You get a young roster like that, some playoff experience. It pays dividends, but realistically, they're just different caliber teams, and so not writing them off. I still think it's not going to be a blowout. The Eagles have definitely played worse teams, but it's the Falcons are stacked against it. This is going to be a team that however they play week one are going to have a statement to make at home now in a primetime game. So it's just going to be tough. I think the Eagles kind of, it might not, again, like their MO is not necessarily hang 40 on a team, but it's going to be, 28-10 and the Falcons never had a chance kind of game,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I just feel like you're going against a team that has great potential, but potential can only take you so far in this league. And the Eagles I feel like they're getting extra rest as well. Like there's a lot of games in here where they're a lot of weeks in here where they're getting extra rest. Like from week 1, week 2, you leave Brazil, you're getting ready for a Monday night game the week after. You have all that long period of rest, and then after that they go on their first road trip of the season. Their 2 road trips of the season looks to be only back-to-backs and only twice. Yeah. That's it, which is pretty awesome compared to their usuals. But you have the Saints next, which that's one team I truly hate.
just to kind of right now you have them 2-0.
I have them 2-0 for sure. Yeah,
I'll say 1-1 just to keep things interesting.
Very good. So they go into the Saints. Saints, I feel like they're still rebuilding just because they're hopeful that Derek Carr is something that he once was, but is not right now. I have nothing more to say about the Saints, honestly. It's just they're in that period where it's just they're trying to find themselves outside of the Sean Payne, Drew Brees era, and still has not come to light for them. I had this as a win for the Eagles as they travel to New Orleans.
I agree. I think this is. I kind of have the opposite things to say about New Orleans as I do the Falcons. Like I don't really understand the direction. I think, there's only so long you can be an above average team, and they have a lot of things going for them, right? And I think that they're still competitive, but again, just talking about that NFC South, there's not a whole bunch of real competitors. Obviously, can't really say much. They lost to the Bucs in the playoffs last year, but I don't know with the Saints. I don't really understand the direction, and they didn't really make that many strides in the offseason to kind of right the ship. So I see this as a win as well. Eagles, play pretty well on the road as well, so I don't really see that being a factor.
Fair game. And then there's the Buccaneers, where it's the Bucs. Todd Bowles has been good against the Eagles in the playoffs, but season-wise, Eagles have had his number. I feel like with the Bucs, you got a Devin White returning back to Tampa Bay. A lot of heat in his blood for how things ended over there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where they lost to the Bucs the year before they went to the Super Bowl. Did they face the Bucs the year that they went to the Super Bowl?
I want to say yes, but
or was it last year that they faced the Bucs in the season? And
they did face the Bucs in the season last year.
Okay, so it was that. Okay. So I feel like you take care of business this year. It's not a revenge game. It's more of like hey, we aren't who we were last year. We are who we are now, and this is who we are kind of thing. I had them strongly starting off at 4-0 because another thing is I don't believe Baker Mayfield has the impressive season that he had last season. Obviously, the tape is out on him with the Buccaneers now, so I feel like a lot of teams are going to be honing in onto what they do best. And Mike Evans is not getting younger, but still efficient as hell. But I don't trust Baker Mayfield against the Eagles in Week 4.
Yeah, I mean, the Todd Bowles has had the Eagles number, but I don't know. Like I just want to think that Kellen Moore has blown out the Buccaneers a couple of times, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just remember Dallas kind of hanging a lot of big numbers on the Bucs over a couple seasons. So, I mean, in 2023, he wasn't there and Dallas won, but the Bucks beat Dallas. That was when Tom Brady year, so I don't really know if that counts. And then, it's not the same Bucks is all I'm saying. And then, 31, they put up 29 to the Cowboys, but yeah, I don't know. Like I just think changing of the guards is gonna be a different offense, gonna be a different defense. I think the Eagles have a point to prove in this one. I think that this one is a must win. Like I'm sure there's a lot of games on here that are circled, but this one especially, like you got to get your get back. You fell flat. For most of the end of the season, but especially in that playoff game, I think Jalen Hurts especially has this one circled. I think at this point they're 3-1.
It's a good measuring stick if you're a Jalen Hurts. Going against that same defense that handled you in the playoffs. Yep. It's good for him, honestly, in my opinion. And now you have a Saquon Barkley in the backfield where you can actually rely on your running back to do more than just run the ball.
Yep.
And you mentioned before that the Eagles have a lot of 1 o'clock games. So these two games against the Saints and the Bucks, they're both 1 o'clock games. I have them 4-0. You have them 3-1 going into the bye week. They get their rest. They come out of the bye week. They're gonna host the Cleveland Browns at 1 p.m. Right out of the bye week. It's a good matchup on paper. Deshaun Watson, right? If he's healthy against Jalen Hurts, and Deshaun Watson was the son that never was, while Jalen Hurts was the son that is. Sure. But I feel like Deshaun Watson isn't who we thought he was with Houston. Yeah. Like there's been a significant drop off with injuries and then the whole mess that's surrounding him with the massaging stuff. I don't know, but that defense is still damn legit.
Yeah.
Like that's my only fear when it comes to the Browns. Is the defense is good. It's gonna be, I feel like, the first real test for the Eagles. Where you're facing an absolute top 10 defense. You have Myles Garrett. You're gonna really test the young offensive line. It's gonna be a huge game. But I don't know if the Browns have enough offensively to do it because Nick Chubb is still nursing that injury. Amari Cooper is Amari Cooper. Not, he's on.
He does like to have good games against the Eagles, though.
Yeah, he definitely has in the past, but he's just more often on as of late for some reason. But I feel like this all boils down to Deshaun Watson. Like, is he healthy? Is he still getting his footing? I think the Browns could take this game away from Philly just because of that defense. But again, like I feel like a lot of it relies on Watson. But for now, I'll take this as an L. The first L of the season for me.
Okay. Yeah, you make a good point. I think that defense is still legit. Nick Chubb coming back just changes their identity as an offense. But for me, like the biggest thing here is I think the Eagles are one of the few teams that kind of do what the Browns like to do, maybe a little better than them. And especially you factor in Saquon. I don't think there's many teams in the AFC that played the same way the Eagles did last year, where they like to be front runners. They don't mind running the football. And it doesn't matter what down it is, they'll run the football at you. They've got a good option game as well as you get Jalen Hurts moving. It can be a lot for a defense that is trying to hold up an offense that just can't put up points in big numbers, right? And so it's kind of a battle of the front runners. Whoever kind of scores the first points will just be trying to hold on to that lead, I think. But you could just have one of those games where Jalen Hurts, just finds AJ Brown and then the game's over. Like, that's what I think is like, either this is a game where you're just kind of grinding it out. It's a grind out win, or the Eagles just find a way to get that passing game going and then it's kind of done with. Like, I don't think the Browns offense can compete with that. So I think this is a win, but that defense is pretty scary. The biggest thing I think for this one is just, you don't have Jason Kelce kind of anchoring down that offensive line anymore. But we forget that, it is Jeff Stoutland against, the defense. It's not just the offensive lineman out there. I'm sure he'll come up with a good game plan to avoid Myles Garrett.
I agree with that. And then for all we know, this could be the Saquon game, right? If Saquon hasn't gone off yet, this could be the warm up to him facing the Giants next at MetLife.
Yeah.
But
I hope they wear the new jerseys for this game.
Oh god,
Those
those
are
are
fucking
horrific, bro.
atrocious, man.
Whoa. It's like they took the Michigan helmet and made a blue and red, and the
Which,
jerseys are
yeah,
they're
bad.
confusing.
They're
They're
bad.
just yeah, they're
They
they're just
took
terrible.
they took aspects from 3 different jerseys. Like that was a good idea, but like imagine that for any other team. Like imagine the Eagles wearing Kelly green jerseys with midnight green pants, and then their blue and yellow helmets. Like that's just bad. It's gonna be bad.
It's
I don't know how you
horrific.
don't see that. Yeah,
It's definitely horrific. But my key thing is like I'm stoked for this matchup because Saquon is going to where he started everything, right?
yeah.
It's gonna
On
be
that turf though, that turf.
that's what I was gonna say. That's the scary part of this game.
Yeah,
I'm happy they're getting the MetLife game out of the way early, but the fearful thing is like, hey, you just faced a tough defense in week 6, week 7. Can you guys make it out alive and healthy from that God forbid stadium?
mm-hmm.
Um, I don't see how we don't chalk up week 7 as a win, regardless. It's Jalen Hurts, it's AJ Brown versus Daniel Jones, Malik Neighbors, who's definitely gonna be a stud, but he's not a fan of Daniel Jones right now at the moment.
Yeah.
It just feels like one of those games where it's like, hey, if you do lose in week 6, you bounce back week 7, and prepare for the next game. So
Yeah.
I still have them at 1 loss. I think they take out the Giants very easily, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't. We don't need to spend much time on this. Then I feel like
No, not at all.
What's that? 5-1.
This is 5-1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 5-1. And that's the last 1 p.m. game until later on in the season as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they get 4 1 p.m. games in a row. The next game is going to be a 4:25 game. They take on Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, which is going to be a freaking beautiful matchup. I feel like this is going to be one of those games where it's like it's overhyped, kind of like the Dolphins and Eagles were last year, and then they rocked the Kelly Green in this one.
Yeah.
But it's an away game, so possibly go with I guess the Whites, right?
Yeah, I mean, they might go the Bengals might go with their whiteouts, and then the Eagles come with the Kelly Green.
Oh, that'd be dope. Yeah, that would be sick.
Uniform combo.
But I don't know. I'm stoked for this matchup. It's a high hope matchup on a lot of aspects of the game, but I just feel like Philly's really good at getting these games done. These games against really, really good teams that you expect them to lose to, they're really good at getting it done and holding down these quarterbacks. If Jonathan Gannon, for example, if Sean Desai was able to hold down Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes last season, there's no way you're telling me that Vic Fangio, the master of the system, is unable to do so against Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the Bengals have done a lot to try and fix that offensive line problem, but then it just keeps coming back, and you just can't have offensive line problems against the Eagles. They'll just exploit that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big factor. And then the Bengals defense, man, it's so up and down. They have a really good week and then have a really bad week, and I just feel like the Bengals are way too inconsistent. So you either get them on a good week, and I still think the Eagles are a better team, or you get them on a bad week, and it just won't be close. So I still think this is a win. But if you get a good Bengals team and you get one kind of on the rise, then it could be a really good matchup.
So you have them 6-1?
Yeah, 6-1.
Okay, fair game. And if it's a tough game, you have a bounce back matchup right here. You hosting Doug Peterson again. Eagles are 1-0 against them so far. Jaguars are a very interesting team where I feel like they're kind of like the low-level Bills. They're stuck in this purgatory where they can't get to that next level, where they just can't figure out what it's going to take for them to be that elite team. They're coming to the link. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Welcome back, Doug Peterson.
Go ahead.
I mean, you said it. I think that the Jacksonville just kind of keeps catching.
It's a Sunday night game too.
Yeah, which I don't really understand. Out of all the games on the schedule, you make that the night game doesn't make sense to me. But
Jacksonville, they came out with the new throwbacks this season, right? If I'm not mistaken, they announced these those
are clean. I like those.
Okay, so maybe a little Kelly Green that night.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think the Jacksonville just keep kind of catching lightning in a bottle. I don't really know there's any consistency, and so I think that this could just be a down year all around for them. Again, like they just They seem to be one of those teams, like you said, that is fine with just being above average. That being said, like I think that they're better than a lot of people give them credit, and they could easily win that division. But yeah, I feel like this is another win. So 1 loss, 7 wins. Oh, I can't hear you, brother.
I'm muted. Sorry, it's 7-1 or 8-1?
7, because it's week 9, but they got the bye. So
gotcha. So 7-1. Interesting note, right? So the Jaguars game is a Sunday night. The Eagles, for the first time, I feel like in a long time, they don't have a primetime game against the Cowboys.
yeah.
Both games are at 4:25.
But that is yeah. I mean, they get a Thanksgiving Sunday, not a Thursday, but November 10th is American Thanksgiving, right?
Is it?
Or is it November 14th?
Isn't that usually like the last Thursday of the month?
That Washington games is the night game on Thanksgiving, isn't it? When they do like the stack games, they do the 3 games.
Yeah,
I think that. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. I don't know. It's your Thanksgiving, man. Not mine.
November 28th is Thanksgiving this year. So
what the heck?
Eagles actually have no holiday games either, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, damn. Okay.
But yeah, like I mentioned, no primetime games against the Cowboys. Kellen Moore revenge game.
Might be.
It's the first season we actually, give it to the Cowboys and blow them out.
It seems like the game that they play in Philly against Dallas always seems to be the second one. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering, but it always seems like the last, like the Cowboys get the home field advantage early.
Yeah.
And then Philly, either the game matters and it's really important that home field matters, or it doesn't matter at all. And like, great, they're in Philly. But I definitely like this game better if they're at the Link. But like, Cowboys are another team, man. I just don't see how they're going to be that good this year.
They didn't really improve much in the offseason. Like, they didn't really add much to say, but they lost a ton, which is scary.
No, I mean, bolstered that offensive line, but they're young. By week 10 they should have it together, but it's going to take some time before they're that Dallas offensive line of the past. And who's running behind them that really scares you? Ezekiel Elliott,
2017 Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, Dowdle. Like, that's, I don't know, might be good for some fantasy touchdowns, but like, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So we're going what, 8-1?
8-1.
8-1 Philly. Okay. Possibly another 10-1 start. Week 11, they have the Commanders, who've always been a sneaky good team at times when it comes to Philly. This is a Thursday night game. They're another question mark. They're a young team, new coach, hell of a defense that they have back there. I've always praised their defensive line. I think they're the studs back there. I'll go 9-1 Philly. I feel like that's the only safe choice to make because the Commanders are very unpredictable. But at the same time, like, they have so many things riding against them than they have riding for them. It's a Thursday night game at the Link. I don't see Jalen Hurts folding.
Yeah, I'm with you. Might be one of those games that's closer than it should be, but I don't see this being a loss. I think I think the only I guess red flag for me is that you got 2 pretty important games following that, and so you might be overlooking. I think that's what kind of happened last year, right? You kind of had Washington before the gauntlet, and you kind of overlooked them. I hope they don't make that same mistake again this year. And again, one of those games where you get ahead enough early, you can kind of just coast, and that's the way they should approach it. Is just treat this as a game you need to win, and come out swinging, and don't let them back in the game at the end like they have been.
Yeah, and the good thing about this game is that this brings in the mini bye, so you don't face another team for another 10 days, which is pretty awesome after having a week 5 bye. So you go through the slate. You're going into LA now. LA is going to be a Sunday night game at that, so a little bit more rest than usual. Mm-hmm. But you're facing Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka, Sean McVay. I feel like the Eagles have always had the Rams numbers since Carson's time. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, Damn, are we really going 10-1?
Yeah, it's tough, man. I think like that receiving core is scary, and I don't know. As much as I like what the Eagles have done in the secondary, like it takes some time to build, and like you kind of said, like it's just like 10-1. You're gonna hit a midseason kind of slow at some point, and that's where you wish the bye was a different week, but LA and flying to LA, I mean, then you got Baltimore. It feels like at least one of those games, you can't really pull it out. I wouldn't even be surprised if they lose both. So I think that they might. I think that they might actually lose this game in LA.
Okay, I'm actually with that, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm
All
actually
right.
perfectly fine with that. So what's the record now that we're at? Why is my math terrible today?
10-2. No,
10-2.
9-2. 9-2.
Oh. So 9-2 going into week 13. You're traveling again. Baltimore, 4:25 p.m. game. I'm okay with saying that. I'm okay with saying that this is a loss. Like I feel like this is an okay loss if you're 9-2, going 9-3 into a slate where you're playing the next 4 out of 5 games at home to close out the season. But my fear about this part is that you drop this game and Dallas is having an okay season and they're creeping behind you. Then here we are once again as last season, and on top of that, you're jeopardizing the 1 seed, and I feel like that's the most valuable positioning when it comes to playoffs in all sports.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of confidence has sparked this. Like the Ravens played the Chargers the week before, which isn't necessarily a tough game. They play the Giants the week after, which also isn't a tough game. Again, when you only lose 4 games, it's hard to say, but the Ravens were much better on the road than they were at home last year. And so I don't really think they had the same kind of home field advantage. I think, if you get Washington, you get LA, like I think that there's another one of those games that's really circled on your list. And I just don't know. I think that Lamar has those games where kind of, again, as a fantasy manager, man, he just has those games where it's kind of a dud. And, something inside me tells me that this game is going to be one of those where the Eagles just kind of come up big and win this one. So I think they win this one in Baltimore. So I got them at I guess 10-2.
All right, and I got them at 9-3. Yeah, 9-3. Panthers and Steelers next. I feel like we could combine those. Panthers is their first.
I mean, if you lose this one, the season's over, man. Pack it in.
First 1 o'clock game since week 7. And then Steelers is a 4:25 game. Panthers is. I give them 2 wins on my plate. It's 11-3 for me.
I mean, so Panthers. I mean, absolutely. I think that this Steelers game is going to be a lot harder than people think. I think the Steelers. You saw what Russell Wilson did late in the season last year. That defense is no joke. Mm-hmm. I think that they're going to be a tough test, and in-state rivals. The Lynx going to be rocking. I think this is a tough one. So, I mean, it seems weird to say the win against Baltimore and lose against the Steelers, but I think that this is a loss.
Interesting. I mean, I feel like it's an advantage that week 14, week 15, you're at home back to back.
For sure.
It's your only true back to back at home in the season because you can't count Brazil. And then obviously week 17, week 18 haven't happened yet. But the team is home. The guys are home. They're where they're most comfortable, and you're just driving to work those days, and it's just easier for you to manage through that. Which is why I'll chalk it up as a win. Russell Wilson is not who he once was. He's a bit more unpredictable nowadays. And for all we know, week 15, Russell Wilson went down with a weird knee injury, and Justin Fields is playing. I still give it to Philly.
Okay, so we both got them at 11-3.
Yeah, fair game.
But different losses.
Second game against the Commanders. This one's in Washington. 1 o'clock game.
Their season's over at this point, man.
Pretty much. Eggs in the basket. I'll say it.
They're trying to play spoiler, and they're good at that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
So, but
definitely are. But they're not the same team that they once were. A rookie quarterback. I don't want to say rookie head coach because Dan Quinn has been a head coach before, but it just feels like Eagles are close to their goal of getting that 1 seed or getting the division. You have the NFC East remaining. 1 game on the road, 2 games at home. I think you go to Washington, you take them down, you come back home and get ready to to find your footing in the playoffs. So I give them 12-3.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Week 17, like you mentioned before, they're at the link. They're hosting the Cowboys. 425 game, and it could be the division on the line. It could be with the 1 seed on the line, depending on how the 49ers and Packers are playing out, or the Lions. I don't know. I feel like I trust this version of the Eagles this season more than I trusted them last year to actually close out must-win games. I feel like the maturity of a Saquon Barkley, the maturity of AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, even the maturity of Nick Sirianni, who I've been very, very hard on this offseason. I feel like it comes to fruition now where it's like these guys actually put their foot on the neck of the opponents and get things done. So I'll say that they do host the Cowboys. It's a tight one, but I think they pull it out.
So you got them 13-3.
13-3.
I think, unfortunately, that at this point in the season, that this game is going to matter more to Dallas than it will to the Eagles. Either the Dallas knows they're not going to make the playoffs, or they're making a push for the wild card. And I think, again, they just love to play spoiler. It sucks to lose to Dallas at home, but I think that this one might be a loss. So I'm going to give them 12-4.
Okay, interesting. All right. Week 18 is once again to be determined. No time. Not even a day, but it's against the Giants, and it's week 18.
Yeah.
If the game matters, and again, it depends on what's going on in the NFC. I'll give it to the Eagles one way or another. I think they finished the season 14-3.
Yep. I have the same record. No, 13-4. But they beat the Giants.
So what do you think? With those records, do you think they're solidifying the 1 seed, or do you think they're competing with the Niners and Packers? Like, is it close enough where they lose it? I feel like the 1 seed is so important to them this season if they want to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think you got a couple teams there at 13-4. I think San Fran, is going to be back up there again. Yeah, I like the Packers. The Packers might be. I don't know exactly what their strength of schedule is. But I think there's going to be a couple teams kind of sitting there in that region, and head-to-head's really going to matter. Like, I think, the Eagles don't really have any head-to-head matchups outside of them playing the Packers, and I guess potentially the Cowboys and the Rams. I guess I don't necessarily see the Rams as a 13-4 team, but it's going to matter with like opponents, and that's always a tough one, right?
Yeah, and I mean, so going back to your point for strength of schedule, so the Packers are 4th in opponents in strength of schedule right now. The Lions are 11th. The 49ers are 12th. And the Eagles are not in the middle of the pack, but they're tied for 21st.
Yeah, they got the NFC South that helps them out.
Yeah. So I mean, this could be a 13-4, 14-3 could be a situation where they have the 1 seed lock in, depending on how the 49ers look. As much as I hate the 49ers, I'm still not prepared to give them enough credit just because I don't think they're going to have the same season that they had last year. There's no way you get Christian McCaffrey healthy for that long again. I feel like the Brock Purdy hysteria kind of dims down a little bit. And they had a weird offseason where they're trying to get rid of both of their wide receivers, and they drafted a surplus amount of wide receivers, and it just makes zero sense as to what the hell they're doing right now, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, even going through the schedule, we talked about some of those games that they could split too, right? Like, I had them losing the Packers game. That could easily be a win. The Browns game, like you said, that's a tough game, but they could win that one. So 13-4 might easily be 15-2. And in which case, you're probably not looking at the same kind of problem, but it's going to be tough, man. I think there's a lot of really good teams in the NFC this year, and they're good for different reasons, right? Like, they're not any team is the same. So it's a good contest, man. I think like the NFC is, it's becoming a fun conference to watch. Like, it's not the same teams every year. There's new teams and young teams too that are getting it done. So definitely a fun competition to watch.
I agree with that. And then I feel like in the middle of the season is where you're gonna really start seeing things kind of come to alignment.
For sure.
Niners have a little bit of a gauntlet middle of the season. They have a string where they face
Chiefs.
The Chiefs, Cowboys, Bucks, Seahawks. The Seahawks twice actually. Packers, and then the Bills.
I wonder what the Seahawks are going to look like this year.
I'm very curious without Pete Carroll to see how that team's going to come.
Yeah.
Did they draft a quarterback or they didn't get a quarterback this season?
I don't think so.
So still Geno? So what happens when you don't pay attention to other teams?
Yeah, man. I've just been locked in on Eagle stuff, man. But yeah, I don't think they drafted. Maybe a late round, but no. They got Sam Howell. That's the young guy.
That was the
who I do really like. Don't get me wrong. I think he could develop into something special, but probably a year off.
Yeah, I mean, and he did. I mean, he did decent enough against Philly last year. Pretty damn good against Philly, if I'm not mistaken. So you have the 49ers having a gauntlet like that. I feel like the Eagles, they have a great competitive balance where they can, I don't want to say take weeks off, but they can afford a loss here and there. But it's about consistency. It's about just making sure that this team is from top to bottom on the same page. We had those weird comments where Kenny Gainwell mentioned that there was a disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff, and apparently they don't do that in Kansas City, even though he's never been to Kansas City. But I think he's a little bitter for losing at the start of the RB1 role. But I mean, you have a better unit this year. You have Saquon Barkley. You have I really like the Paris Campbell addition, and Nine Smith as well. You have on defense, you have the talent there. Finally, you actually have the talent. I still think they need to add a safety to that group, just because if you want to go over the hump, you need somebody like a Justin Simmons per se, who you could probably get for like a 1 year, $4.5 million contract right now.
I just think by the time they need someone, Sidney Brown's gonna be healthy again, and I got to stick with my Canadian boy, man. He's gonna be.
Sidney was on a tear, but it's just a matter of like I don't know. Like I'm not a big advocate of Reed Blankenship being our starting safety. Like he's good when he needs to be good at times, right? But I feel like he's a bit of a liability in coverage at times. Although he's had moments where he's been at the right place at the right time. But I think allowing Sidney Brown to kind of fight for that role is gonna be very key to the success of the Eagles defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of going back to the Jim Schwartz days when we talked about how important that third safety is, right? Like there's so many years where that third safety, like that was a key player for that Eagles defense. And I think we're right back to those days. And so I hope Sidney Brown come back healthy. But if he does and he kind of picks off where he left, like that's a pretty solid top three. And, if you add someone else that takes you over the top, but I'm pretty confident, especially going forward. It's a young group. You got, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signed for, a couple of years now. It's not just 1 year contract. So, it could develop into something really special. And the way that Vic Fangio uses his safeties too, it's going to be fun to watch, man. And I think that there's definitely ways in which Reed Blankenship, some of those shortcomings are fixed. And I mean, the other thing we haven't even talked about is what Cooper DeJean's going to do in this defense. Like, who knows, right? Who knows?
I hope they don't overcomplicate it for him. I really want him to just, develop in one position this year, and then hey, next season he's comfortable enough in the system to start expanding his role. Let's just not don't ruin him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that his versatility is going to find him playing time early. So that'll be really good. Wherever it is, like I just think he's going to get on the field, and I think that he needs to do that. It's similar to Reed Blankenship, man. Like as soon as he started getting consistent playing time, you kind of saw it. Like I think every fan kind of eyes widened and like, oh, this guy can actually play. And I think, it's a bit more obvious with Cooper DeJean. Obviously, he was a potential first round pick, ended up being a second round pick, and so I think it's a bit more obvious. But I think we're really going to notice how high his potential is in this defense early on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm more stoked about seeing Quinyon Mitchell just because I feel like a lot of people have been enamored with the Cooper DeJean pick that they forgot that we took Quinyon Mitchell, the best cornerback in the draft, at 22. And then
the Terrion Arnold highlight came out, and that's a great pick, but I think it distracted from the fact that
yes,
Cooper DeJean's still that guy, or Quinyon Mitchell's still that guy.
Yeah, he's silent but deadly, man. I feel like he's gonna be one of those guys where it's just like he doesn't say much, but he does a lot of talking on the field.
Yeah, man. And I mean, he's coming to like how many teams get to add a corner like that as their second corner? We're pretty fortunate. He gets to learn from Slay, and again, I know that Bradbury looked cooked, but hey, as a veteran, he can definitely teach us some things, and so he's coming into a really favorable situation.
Yeah, absolutely, 1000%. It's gonna be a good season. I feel like it's gonna be a really more highs and lows. They, like you mentioned before, they have a lot of 1 o'clock games this season, which is great. It's gonna be that year where it's kind of like I wrote a piece about it, where it's like I feel like the Eagles could finally lay out the foundation to success this season, where it's like you can expect them to contend year in, year out because they have so many young talent on favorable contracts. Even the AJ Browns and Devontae Smiths of the world, like they're all on favorable contracts going forward. You have a lot of defenders on rookie contracts. It's so favorable for them for the next I would say like 3 to 5 years, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just excited to watch this team grow, man. It's I think one of the issues last year is, we talked about the culture, is like you kind of get a chance at a reset this year, and that's exactly what they needed.
I completely agree. But yeah, that's our prediction of the schedule. We'll be back on Tuesday. This week we split it up just to cover a little bit of OTAs and the schedule. So we'll be back with the regular crew on Tuesday. And until then, I'm Brian Cameron alongside Morgan Burkett, and we're flipping the birds.
Go Birds.
Yes, sir.
Flipping the birds.